So it's been a while since I did a podcast, but we're going to give it another shot here. And, yes, we got Zak Gabor here, good buddy, colleague, um, stud in the field of SNC and physical therapy, sports science. This guy, it's going to be a great show. I'm really pumped for it. And thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you coming on for the first revisit to this podcast. We'll see how it goes, but it was actually you who had mentioned, I should give it a shot. And
I feel like the lead
are.
instigator. I feel like the lead instigator to getting to this point because it's been great selfishly getting to chat with you all the time, but you got so much good wisdom to share with the world. And so I'm excited for you to be venturing back into this.
I appreciate it.
And appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So let's do this. So we'll get right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just a little bit of background, so folks have that while they're listening.
Yeah. So try to keep it to the relevant details, but I grew up playing sports my whole life. Like if I could be a professional recreational athlete at recess, that would be my dream. But I played soccer and baseball competitively through high school. I played tennis till I was like 13 and then stopped it. I was a late bloomer. I think that's part of why I stopped, because I just felt like I couldn't really pop the ball that well. But anyway, I went to PT school in Ithaca. I graduated in 2015. So I've been out practicing for better part of a decade now, which is nuts. But, got my CSCS while I was in PT school, thought I was hot shit, but it was a good entry point. I got to connect and shadow with a ton of amazing strength and conditioning professionals, work as a personal trainer. I've always been super interested in the application of strength and conditioning for rehab because, you go into a lot of different clinics. And at least for me, when I went to PT school, it was like, I went there for the discovery weekend and I'm like, oh, ultrasound, that's sick. Like a lot of our professions kind of predicated and people think about like ultrasound or modalities or banded exercises. And, when you look at actual return to sport rehab, it really requires a lot more physical preparation. So I just think it's such an important thing that we need to be doing. And yeah, that's been a big part of my passion. And then also just, there's a lot of misinformation in the rehab space, similar to strength and conditioning. There's a lot of dogma. That it's one thing to be dogmatic, but another thing is when it's like potentially harmful. And so I was always really driven by some of the misinformation that was leading patients to like avoid lifting or avoid using their back or avoid bending their back or whatever. And so that kind of led me into my passion for education and starting a free mentorship we combined with clinical athlete. And yeah, that's always been a big drive for me, is the education side of things and helping to kind of up the standard in the physical therapy and rehab industry. But adjacently, we work with a lot of strength and conditioning professionals as well, trying to get that kind of rehab skill set and just, no frills, no BS, just trying to really provide the most accurate and on point narratives and programs that we can for our athletes to get them doing what they love.
Yeah, totally. And you guys are doing a great job, and we will get into your business hopefully towards the end here. But
yeah,
I did want to touch on a couple of things because you mentioned it there. You get at a PT school and you're like the guy where you're supposed to be doing ultrasound and banded distractions and all this kind of stuff to help athletes, feel better, get their joints moving and whatnot. And I also get a ton of players coming to me and being like, oh, should I, I have this sort of ailment here or there, my shoulder's bugging me. Should I, what mobility drills? What stretches do I need? What mobility drills do I need to do? Should I roll it? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what are the blind spots? Like where are coaches and players missing out on?
Yeah, it's blind spot. Like it's blind spots, not just for coaches and players, but even when I look back at me, 10 years ago, I think that just like societally, we're kind of brought up and encultured in this sort of superficial, body is a machine, body is a car. There's something wrong. It's like, oh, we just stretch. Like, we just need to stretch it, or we need to do this one fancy exercise. We kind of think about things in this very black and white way. And I know for me as a early PT, I was very seduced by some of these more like, oh yeah, I got to have them standing on a Bosu ball and playing catch off a trampoline with a ball, or doing some of these things that looked cool, but like weren't actually moving the needle. So I think one of the biggest inflection point moments for me, and I think this gets to the point of like what are a lot of coaches and tennis athletes missing, is we think so much about the here and now. It's like, oh, my shoulder's hurting. What stretch can I do? And it's like, first we need to, what have you been doing over the last week, month, years? And we see these patterns of how we're interacting with physical stressors and the impact of psychological and social stressors on our physiology and how these all kind of manifest together. And so often that's where the clues lie, where like many of us are like, oh, it's just because I must be doing this one thing wrong, or you know what I mean? And it's like, actually, you've been on court playing 5 days a week and your training consists of the most underloaded minimal thing ever. You're overtraining, like not recovering right yet. It's like, yeah, what's this one shoulder stretch I need to do to fix it? Your tennis math meme was great the other day. Kind of hit that right on the head. But I would say that's one of the biggest things. And it's been kind of bastardized as like load management, but that is more or less one of the biggest rocks we have at our disposal.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where I think so many players and coaches are, I was in the same boat, right? Like I was searching for all these special moves and this and that. And it's obviously, it's important to, to explore different patterns of movements and exercises that might be beneficial for someone. But like what you're saying, what's the underlying thing here where, okay, but you've been playing this much, like where can people take it? Like where can an athlete start off and say, okay, maybe I have been playing too much, but what can I do about that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, like I was thinking about it today. I was lifting at the gym and I saw this guy squatting and he had a pretty nice squat technique, but I was thinking like, 10 years ago, if I saw someone and they had like the slightest butt wink when they were squatting, I'd be like, oh, we need to fix that. That's why they have back pain. So if they came in, that's what I would immediately pound on. Meanwhile, if I would have asked the question about like what your training looked like over the last few months, they'd be like, actually, I just started this Russian volume program where I'm squatting 4 days a week and I'm crushing volume and intensity. And it's like, it doesn't mean that the mechanics don't matter, but we just need to be mindful of like also using other lenses to appraise why people are dealing with things. So it gives us more options, right? Like I think about tennis athletes and maybe you look at them serve and you're like, oh yeah, no wonder that's why they have shoulder pain. And of course there's things you can do to augment their mechanics, but maybe it has more to do with their training loads have been egregious. And if you just adjust that first, maybe the mechanics they have that have worked for them competitively might not be worth changing. So I don't know. It's a really interesting discussion.
Yeah. And I think a lot of players, there's this tradition with tennis, right? Like you have to be on the court a ton. You have to play a couple times a day. You got to do your fitness. Like that was me when I was playing in an academy. Like I was 16 years old. Within like 4 weeks, I moved, started playing in an academy, and right away, wrist flared up, shoulder, elbow. Like obviously, like at the time, I was just like, oh, the coaches, the first thing they were trying to do is like, we have to change your technique. Your technique is off.
Right.
I just went from playing like summer tennis at my local club, a couple hours a day max, to playing 5 hours a day, every single day, actually 6 days a week. And this is where so many players, they go down the rabbit hole of like, every time something's wrong, I got to either fix my technique or,
well, it's like, but then you fix your technique and then they probably F something else up. It's like the same way someone, I help a lot of people with chronic low back pain, let's say, and they're like, oh, I just need to sit with the perfect posture. And it's like, if you go from sitting slouched to like sitting upright all day, your back's going to hate you the same. It's just a different hate. So at the end of the day, right, it's all the something about the dose is both the poison and the antidote. And so like really trying to get that right. And of course there's nuances to it when you're dealing with like, yeah, obligations of being on court for a certain amount of time. But I feel like that's definitely a really misunderstood thing, is just like the straight up physics of tennis are brutal. Like we are asking our body to deal with multitudes of body weight. We're asking our shoulders and elbows and wrists to deal with these really ballistic movements. And yes, like playing tennis is one way to prepare for it. But if you're not doing other things off the court, you're literally leaving so much meat on the bone as far as not only better performance, but like reducing the risk of injury, which is probably more important, because like I look at the pro tennis athletes and it's like that season is just absolutely brutal. But, you know, staying on court, being durable is going to be one of the most important ways to keep getting points and,
Absolutely.
you know, making a living. Because when you're not playing, now you got to pay for rehab and you're not making money.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And actually, this kind of leads into my next question, because you've obviously dealt with a lot of athletes, and you have colleagues who work in pro tennis, but you've actually started playing a lot more again, right, in recent years.
Yep.
Like you being on court now, you playing more hours, you playing at a higher intensity, like as your game improves, obviously you're playing with better players, more demanding. Like, has your perspective on the sport changed at all, shifted? Like,
Totally. And that, so like, actually, I want to just backtrack 1 second, because your first question around like what are blind spots, I think that this kind of ties into it. And shout out to Kayla, my friend who works on tour. She's a beast. But, you know, when I was first starting to get back into tennis and we were talking, I think one of the really important things with tennis too is like we think of it as this like hitting sport, but the legs, man, the legs, the footwork, like who is Agassi's famous coach, like Gil
Reyes.
Reyes. It's like, you know, weak legs command, strong legs obey. Like that really stuck with me. I think that's a huge blind spot, is like getting those legs nice and strong and fit. And then beyond that, just like how important range of motion through the full kinetic chain is. Because a lot of times with overhead athletes, it's like, yeah, we can get the shoulder stronger, but if you don't have good rotational capabilities through your spine and your hips, like we want to be as efficient as possible with how we're dispersing load. So just wanted to dot that I really quick as far as like other blind spots. But for my own journey, yeah, like I got the bug 5 years ago. You know, I was trying to play rec soccer still in like men's leagues, but it was so hard. Like all the leagues were at like 9 p.m. It's a pain in the butt, and my coworker drags me out, and like I was hooked, man. Like my grips were terrible. I didn't really know what I was doing, but yeah, I played a decent amount of ping pong in the in between, so like I was still moving, but yeah, I was hooked, and ever since then it's been an amazing journey to get back. I've been absolutely obsessed. Getting to work with you over the last few years has been amazing to improve my level. And it's just funny because it's like even starting at probably more of like the 3.0, 3.5 level, and now playing at more of the 4.0, 4.5 level, like even just going to a practice with 4.5, 5.0 guys, and I'm dead. Like, because it's like, it's just a different level of force that you need to be able to maintain with hitting the ball, getting to the ball earlier. It's crazy. And so that's really been an important learning lesson for me, is just knowing that like as the levels go up, like there's more demands physically, but even just like, man, the changes of direction, the sprinting, the quick decelerating, like you need to be able to have all of these concurrent qualities to really be a beast on the court. Like strong, explosive, endurance, flexible, like it all matters.
It's brutal, man.
But that's, I think, what I love about it is it's probably the most athletic I felt in the last however long, you know, especially working with you, just like all the jumping, cutting, changing direction. Like I love that I can trust my body to go out and go do all of those things.
Yeah. And you actually you had a bit of a groin thing, or you did have some groin issues, right? Like in the past, like and that was that tennis related? No.
Yeah, so like I had, as what happens to most like post college, you know, high school athletes, you start working, you're not playing every day, you're not training every day. And like I would go out to go play rec league soccer after not doing anything for a month, and I would strain my quad. I would return too fast and then strain my adductor. So I had kind of dealt with these kind of recurring like adductor and groin, like almost like athletic, like hernia type of pain and symptoms. I also had some recurring hamstring strains from sprinting. And so, yeah, that was, as I was starting to play more tennis, they were kind of emerging, but I needed to, again, like training, but also I needed to get my dosing right. Like I see so many rec players like in their 30s, 40s, 50s that just go from like not playing to like playing 5 days a week, and then they come see me in PT and they're like, dude, my back is hurting me. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. You just spiked your normal workload from not doing anything to playing this violent sport 5 days a week. Like, I'm not sure what you want me to tell you.
Yeah. And I even get players who they played competitively maybe when they were juniors or whatever, but they've been off for a little while and now they're coming back, and
Yep.
they think that, oh, I can just hop back into playing the same amount of hours at the same intensity that I did 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
But it's just not possible, right? And this kind of leads me into it. Like, where do rec players start? Like what would be an appropriate dosage?
Yeah.
For them to get going? Like what did you find was effective for you?
Yeah.
Like you weren't out there 5 days a week, right?
No. I mean, literally, it was like, okay, like I played, maybe twice a week over the summer. And then the winter comes and it's like, all right, I'm going to play once a week. But during that time, I'm going to start to ramp up my fitness in the background. Mm-hmm. Then as the spring comes around, okay, now I'm doing twice a week, maintaining 2 to 3 days of training. Summer comes around, okay, now I'm bumping up to like 3 times a week. And then I'm probably bumping down to like 2 days of training per week. But I'm still keeping some training in the mix. Mm-hmm. And that's about as high as it gets for me, because like I'm a 34-year-old dude that's playing at like the 4.0, 4.5 level. Like, come on, I'm obsessed with tennis, but like I also have other obligations where it's like, I would love to be on court every day, but my body also like would not tolerate that.
Yeah. It's also the unpredictability of it. Like,
yeah, you got to make sure you're recovering too.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that, because I think it's so appropriate for adults that are, whether they're starting or restarting and they're, fairly competitive. It's like, whatever you think you can do, like decrease it by at least like 50%.
Yeah.
Start really slow.
The other thing too, Matt, is like now, because I've strung together multiple years of like building up my chronic workload of tennis exposures, while now, yes, during the winter, I'm only playing once, maybe twice a week. This summer, if I wanted to bump up to like 3 or 4 times a week, I feel confident in my body's capabilities to do that, because I've been building a base year over year. And it's not just like this. Yep. If I went right to that, it wouldn't have happened. So I really, for the recreational tennis athlete, like I think anyone doing it is pretty much obsessed and like looking at it as a long-term, right? We see those like 90-year-olds rocking doubles at the park, and you're like, I want to do that when I'm older. And it's like, great. You want to play across your lifespan. That's awesome. Like, let's treat it that way. You can continue to build and get more athletic and stay healthier just by, less is more sometimes, right? And so it's just finding that balance that works for you. And I think that like for any working adult, 3 to 4 times a week on court has got to be plenty. You know what I mean? To satiate the need while still hitting the minimum needs of both recovery and training stimulus to keep you healthy.
Absolutely. And you're someone that also plays, some competitive tournaments as well. Yeah. Like you're not just out there hitting balls. Like you're playing practice sets, you're playing weekend tournaments.
I'm trying to get better. Like that's the beauty of it. It's so fun, but staying healthy is the most important aspect for me to keep building my skills consistently.
Exactly. So if you're an ITF player listening, so you take it a little bit slower. You can still play competitive tournaments. You don't have to practice like you're a pro tennis player and you can still get better. Like you 2-3 times a week. Tell me about your skill. Like, have you been able to improve your skill as well? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, if that's like even just from like a skill acquisition perspective, of course, you're a huge nerd around all of that, and so am I. But it's like, again, more isn't always better.
yeah,
Like less is more in a sense of being really on point with like what you're doing and why you're doing it, and knowing that like I think it seems at least like looking at a lot of tennis athletes, the ITF level, at pro level, talking with some of my friends who work pro, it's like there's a lot left on the table as far as the physical preparation goes and the fitness. Granted, the demands of the schedule don't make it easy to do that, but the good ones find a way to mix it in and find that minimum effective dosage. So I would agree. It's one of those things that's like kind of seems counterintuitive, but especially if you're like an ITF player or a pro player that's dealing with constant injuries, I think that's a time you got to take a hard look in the mirror and be able to say like, that's the tough love, right? Like that's why part of me there was a part of me that wanted to look at what it would be like to work at the pro level in tennis. But I was like, man, there's so much bullshit. And like, it would be hard for me to like, I got to keep it real and be like, look, no, you think you need to play this much, but like your body is clearly not tolerating these things. So how do we find a way to dial it back while you can work on some of these physical qualities while still hitting the minimums that you need to keep your skills sharp and growing? It's just a hard conversation when there's also a lot of other stakeholders, coaches, trainers, physios that maybe have a different philosophy on what that looks like.
Yeah. And I want to dive into that a little bit more, like competitive players, pro, junior versus adult, and what some of the actual probably more similarities than people think.
Yep.
But tell us just about your like off-court training regime. Like, let's say now it's winter.
Yep.
What does it kind of look like on a weekly basis? Like, how many times are you in the gym?
Yeah.
When do you do your plyos, if you do, that sort of thing?
So for me, right, it's like you have your kind of different buckets of need as far as like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm lifting some relatively heavy things. Again, that could be totally different for me that has 15 years of lifting experience versus someone who's newer, where we're not going to like heavy could be doing sets of 10 or 12 versus like doing sets of 5, or something less than that. It's definitely doing some jumpy things. It's definitely doing some, powerful things where I'm moving weight quickly. And then it's doing some accessories and just building some general muscle hypertrophy and strength. And so for me, I'm training minimum 2 days a week, maximum 3 days a week. And yeah, each, like I try to do plyometrics twice a week and then like some different jumping, and they're all really, I'm not forcing the intensity with them at all. Like I'm just looking at building some good rhythm and exposures for my tendons and my just like overall athletic skill expression. And then beyond that, it's like a heavier squatting motion, a heavier deadlifting motion, or maybe focusing on range of motion with those things. And then some, Olympic lifting, and then some accessories. And that's pretty much the extent. I mean, it's your programming. I make some tweaks here and there based on how my body's feeling. Like, honestly, these past few weeks are a great example of like, I've been off the program because my body has felt so beat up. I like got sick and I was sitting a ton over the holidays, eating like crap. My back was like unreasonably sore for no reason. I'm like, well, I'm not going to force it. So I was just doing some feel good stuff, hitting some light intensities, getting moving. And now I'm starting to feel really good. So I'm ready to start like really training again. Like got my wrist straps in. So we're ready to lift some heavy dumbbells.
Let's go.
But yeah, that's what the programming looks like.
Yeah. And it just goes to show like you don't have to be in the gym 5 days a week. Like there's still tons of gains. Like you've mentioned to me privately how your groin, your hamstring have both been feeling unbelievable. Like you went through a period where it was just like, it was tough to do certain movements, right? Like on the court and be dynamic.
Yeah, and also the one thing I should note too is like I'm in and out of the gym in an hour or less. So like yeah, of course I want to do like more conditioning or more things, but it's like as long as I'm hitting two meaningful sets of a given exercise at a sufficient effort, that's what I mean by meaningful. We're hitting minimums. And so for me, this past year has been crazy. So that's been a huge staple for me. It's just like
Yeah.
not getting bogged down in like okay, got to do 30 minutes of plyometrics. Now I need to take 5 sets of squats. Now I need to do 3 sets of lunges. It's just, yeah, being okay with minimum effective dose, I think is such an important thing for recreational and professional tennis athletes. Like that is so, 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 so important for longevity.
Yeah. And let's dive into that a bit because
Yep.
I'll get some ITF pros, even challenger level pros that come to see me and they're like, well, I'd love to work with you, but I have tournaments the next, for the next 6 weeks. Like, when am I supposed to train?
Yep. Yeah.
And as a professional, like, what do you tell them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where you got to probably be real with their skill level. And it's like, well, are you making it far in those tournaments every week? Because that
Mm.
obviously makes a huge difference. Because if you're losing in the first or second round, well, now we have some good time to get in the weight room later in the week. So I think that's probably an important and honest conversation. But even beyond that, it's just saying like, hey, how are we right? Like people think that meaningful gains in the weight room come at a like I'm taking 4 sets to like failure and that's what I need, where it's like you could take 2 sets to failure
Mm.
and you can get probably similar appreciable gains. You could do 4 sets, with a few reps in reserve, or you could do 2 sets with a few reps in reserve, and you can probably get a meaningful stimulus from that. So I think that's the important concept to understand is like, maybe they're only taking one top set of a certain movement. Like there's a lot of amazing neurological benefits you can get from even like taking one heavy set and probably still some, physiological changes that you're getting to with like muscle bulk. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
Totally. I haven't done, you know, more than 2 sets on my accessories in in years. But
Yeah,
like you said, I try to take those sets, close to failure. You want to still be able to work hard, but the volume of work needed is not nearly as high as people think it is, right? Like,
yeah, that ends if totally fair. It's like, yeah, you don't want your athletes to be sore as hell on the court from your training, but it's this kind of like paradox where like the less you do, the more sore you're going to be doing anything. Whereas if you
mm,
can get into a groove of hitting minimums, you can get, if you're lifting, let's say you have a weight that's like, your 10 rep max. But let's say you do like 5 to 6 meaningful reps with that weight instead of 10 reps, but you're like moving explosively. It's not going to have as much of a fatigue cost, but it's still right on the cusp of what you would need to get like meaningful stimulus from it. And so I
mhm.
think that's like the mindset that I would be taking into it. Like if I were getting interviewed for a job, that would be my approach, is like trying to find those minimums that feel sustainable, because consistency, like that's the other piece of it, right? It's like consistency is when you really start to see the gains come alive from training versus like going too hard. Now I'm sore. Now I'm avoiding it for 2 weeks. Oh,
Mhm.
the cycle repeats, and you build this negative relationship with it versus, yeah, like how do you indoctrinate it into it? And it is interesting. Like I'm going to a Celtics game tonight and like NBA, it's so normalized. Like they're lifting, they're pretty much lifting after every game that they have.
It's crazy.
Um, so there's something actually protective about strength stimulus when dosed appropriately. So
Mm.
that's why I think working with a skilled professional, someone like yourself, can be really just like, yeah, performance benefits and health during huge.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say though that I'm interviewing you for, you're going to be with a top 10 player and they're they're used to playing, 3 hours a day. They're battling a few things here and there, but we need to get them into the gym a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, how are you selling it? What would that week look like for them? Let's say it's a training. They got a couple weeks before the next tournament, and then after that, there's just basically in between events for the next couple months. Like, what would that kind of training look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is like the type of thing that it would be super fun to get to collaborate with a strength and conditioning professional and kind of like put the perfect approach together, air quotes. But I think one thing you've said that really resonates with me is like, okay, we don't necessarily have to cut out the 3 hours on court, but we definitely want to embrace this kind of principle of like high days, low days, maybe some intermediate days, but making sure we're stacking those in a sensible way over the course of the week, where maybe one of those days is 3 hours on court that's really intense. And then we're having another day, like the following day, that's a little bit less intense, more stationary hitting, working on specific skills that we're trying to work on, watching tape, talking tactics, things of that nature. And then the interesting thing is like, I think depending on the player and depending on preferences and depending on how it all shapes out, like I think there's people that can make an argument that on the hard practice days, you might also go do some minimum effective dose hard training. That way the following day is like a really good recovery day where you're able to really, and again, if this was like a preseason, that would be how I would want to stack it for at least the first few weeks. But the reality is getting them ready to peak for a tournament, they need to be ready to perform at a high intensity day after day after day. If it's a grand slam, they're doing that for 2 fucking weeks, which is insane. Granted, they do have a rest day in between, so I guess that is a little bit different. But the new Master 1000 format is, are they playing every day, or do they get a day in between?
Pretty much every day. There might be
until the back end of the tournament.
one day here.
So that's the only consideration for me is like, how do you, like at a certain point, you need to get them match fit so that they're ready to tournament fit so that they're ready to play and peak multiple days. But if we have like a 6-week runway, I would definitely be using those first few weeks to try to stack hard days, easy days, and hitting some minimum effective dosage strength on those hard days. And then probably just doing some like nice extensive plyometrics and dynamic types of movements on those low intensity days and some easy hitting on those. Like that would be, again, me, like that's, that's kind of what I love though about Gil Reyes coming in and working with Agassi is like, he wasn't coming in with he worked with basketball athletes. You know what I mean? So I think there's something nice that could happen, taking someone that's not like indoctrinated into the norms of tennis culture. But yeah, in a perfect world, that's something what it would look like.
Yeah. It's awesome to hear you talk about this. As by profession, you're a physiotherapist, right?
Yep.
And I haven't heard you talk about anything but what an S&C coach could talk about anyway. Strength training, plyometrics,
right?
Ballistic lifting. But is there a place where manual therapy does play a role?
Yeah,
definitely.
Those
types of traditional modalities.
I think twofold. If I were looking at my role as because I think my role as a physio would kind of be threefold. One of them would be collaborating with the strength and conditioning professional to get the load management right, as far as how we're dosing out all of the strength and conditioning and tennis and recovery. Second would be like, what are known deficits? So doing baseline testing and doing force testing so that I could see like, oh, you have a 30% deficit of your rotator cuff strength on this side versus this side. So let's make sure we're doing different exercises to improve that, or we have a range of motion or a mobility deficit. So that would probably be the second bucket, is like uncovering some of these deficits and helping to like restore as much of these as I could. And then third would be more of the manual therapy bucket, where it's like, yeah, man, like, I mean, if I could go get like stretched and massaged after playing a match, like that would be amazing. Of course, it's not a helpful thing for these athletes. So I definitely think that for me, I would view it more as like a recovery modality as opposed to like, oh, I need to do this one adjustment to your neck to align you properly so you can go out and play a great match, versus like, let's be a little bit mindful of like what we are doing and what we're not doing with some of our manual therapy interventions. So I think more so from a recovery perspective, I would be totally good with, massage, soft tissue work, joint mobilizations, things like that help to kind of just make the athlete feel better. I think is a totally sensible and positive thing for them. And of course, a lot of it hinges on their preferences. But you want to just be careful with like, there's probably some athletes that have been indoctrinated in some pretty goofy stuff that like the trade-off talk probably needs to happen. But
yeah, it's not a replacement to the training that needs to still happen, right? Like these are things that probably, there's probably some sort of physical benefit, but psychologically as well. Like, I mean, if I'm laying down and someone is restoring my range passive and I'm just chilling, like that's pretty relaxing in and of itself, right?
Yeah. I look at it probably as like an 80-20 type of vibe where it's like, if we're getting the 80% right of like your load management and even on your recovery days, like I know my colleague Kayla, she does a great job with like her athlete, a lot of her recovery day is just doing some really good, like active mobility types of drills through full ranges of motion, shades of your med ball drills, your non-throw med ball drills, where we're just working through ranges of motion. We're recovering in that way, right? It's like, I think we have this conflation where it's like recovery has to mean me doing something to you. Like that is one way in which it could happen, but athletes can recover by doing some low intensity spin on the bike, doing some low intensity dynamic movements. Sure, I can do some hip mobilizations, I can do some soft tissue work, but it's just trying to put that all together. But that would probably be my take on like the role of physio in a way that I would feel fulfilled working in that position.
Yeah. And the key there, I think, is you kept saying low intensity spinning, low intensity dynamic movements. Like, that's the thing that's important here. We want recover. Like, you don't want to do something that's going to, impact how you recover. Because if you're dosing again with something too intense, that's where, things can go sideways.
That's silly. Yeah. But yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, for sure, man. So that would be an interesting project maybe for you and I one day. Get get a little top 10 player, huh?
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, oh man,
until you're away from your family and your dog. And then
honestly, that was like I was talking to my friend who's on tour, and I'm like, man, no, not at this point in my life, not gonna happen. But I love I can't wait for Australian Open to start though.
Oh yeah.
Gets me right up out of bed, wake up at 5:30.
Back to sleepless nights. But Zach, dude, this was really, really cool. I know I'm conscious of time here a little bit. You got that game to go to.
Yeah, go see.
Just tell us a little bit about your business, what you guys are up to. I had the luxury of being part of your clinical athlete mentorship. It was just awesome. Just to be able to kind of get feedback on my own process and my own, things that dude, I think about, but sometimes I'm like, am I off here? Am I on? But getting that feedback from guys who have really dug into so many different topics, it was just really, really awesome. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I'll say, like with Clinical Athlete, the company that I co-run, a big part of our values is like no one is safe from approach, so it's like we're always open to, like, I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I'm just trying to explain things to the best of my current capabilities, but I'm always open to change my mind in, if there's better information or a better way that I can do something for my athletes, that's what I want to do. But anyway, so basically my time is split running all with Clinical Athlete is a company I co-run, and we have an educational product, our Clinical Athlete Provider Certification, which, exercise prescription is our Trojan horse. because a lot of physios don't get that preparation at all. But as you know, it's much more than that. We kind of really crash course on clinical reasoning, decision making, critical thinking, putting a cohesive plan together, and just being really intentional with the decisions that we're making about the programs we're creating for our athletes. And that's really fulfilling and really fun. And so that's like physios, chiropractors, coaches, like trainers are involved in that. And then otherwise, I work fully online clinically as a physical therapist, where I work again, like some people are like shook when they hear online physical therapy. And just to kind of explain for a second what that entails, it's part of the reason I left the clinic is because I felt kind of constrained by what I thought my athletes really needed. Like I had people coming in with chronic tendinopathy, and it's like, yeah, I love seeing you and we can do some manual therapy, but at the end of the day, like you need a really sensible loading program that's going to actually heal your tendon and get you back to doing the sport that you want to do. And this is going to take like 3 to 6 months. So insurance is going to cut you off, or I'm doing way more outside of what I need to do in the sessions. So for me, it's like an initial evaluation, I do consults, but then it's programming where it's like basically I'm creating a program, athletes are uploading videos, they're uploading RPEs, they're uploading symptoms, then I'm able to iterate their program on a week by week basis and help them get back. Like I just started with a new client who's a former college tennis athlete, 7 months out of an Achilles repair. And I'm like, having the time of my life, because it's like sucks for him, but I feel really equipped to help the shit out of him and get him back. But it's a process. Like Achilles repairs take 12 to 18 months. It's really slow going. And but it's like he could come see me in physio once a week, but he needs like a really good plan that he could do 3 to 4 days a week that gets progressed appropriately. Because most people go to physio, they get the dreaded printout of here's your exercises that you're doing, ad nauseum, where like we really need to be progressive is a key word. So that's what it looks like.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. And where can people find out more about you, about clinical athlete?
So mostly on Instagram, Zak Gabor, ZakGabor.dpt is my Instagram handle, or clinical athlete is just clinical athlete is our Instagram handle. And then clinicalathlete.com would be where to find out more in-depth information. But yeah, man, I really enjoy you having me on. I'm really hoping that you'll continue on doing this, because I think you probably have some awesome connections and some great guests to have on, and just you have a lot of wisdom yourself to share with people. So
appreciate that, man.
I'm excited for it, man, and I'm excited to keep making gains with you as my coach. So thank you.
Exactly. Appreciate it, dude. Let's do this again, hopefully soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers, man.